trained to go that way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business is approval of minutes, and I have some suggested changes to the meeting of the 21st. And on page 2, at the very bottom, it says the planning and conservation development is due for revision by March 2016. It should read the plan of conservation and development is due for revision. That's just really a typo. And then on page 4, Laura, similarly, it says Susan Bransford said there was a request for proposals to help P&Z do the preliminary work, and I'd suggest we add for the plan of conservation and development. That was not there. And those are the only changes I have. Are there any changes from anyone else? I'll pass those on to our recording secretary. With those amendments, would the amended minutes be approved? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Brian. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain, I was not here for that meeting.
Thank you, Mark. One abstention.
I might be abstaining. Was I at that one?
Excuse me, is Carl listed on the front there?
Yeah.
You were there?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The special meeting of May 29th, 2014, that was where we approved the grant, I believe. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Ryan wasn't present. One abstention. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, the next item is acceptance of agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Kathy, seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Kathy and I had the pleasure of going recently to a meeting at the Department of Transportation, and one of the matters that was front and center was the importance of safety on our roads in Connecticut. And they invited many children from throughout the state that had received awards for their work in a poster campaign. And one of the awardees is from Portland, and her name is Sydney Carlson, and she's here tonight with her dad. And I wondered if maybe both would come up and talk a little bit about work safety and show us your poster. We're very concerned that our roads in Portland, we have a lot of state roads as well as local roads, and the selectmen work very hard to try to make sure things are safe. And maybe you can share with us your important message that won an award, Sydney. Yeah, this is throughout the state of Connecticut.
Yes, great.
And you brought your ribbon. That's great.
Yeah, very nice.
Very nice. The lieutenant governor was there, and
Really?
Yeah.
many other
Commissioner.
people-
Yeah,
commissioners.
All by yourself, without him?
You want to talk about this? No.
No. Well, it's very nice of you to come and show us your poster.
Yeah.
That says it all.
Yeah, most of that she did was for driving and texting, and I also, I work for the DOT.
Oh, you do?
And not that,
Okay.
anybody could have done the drawing as far as you didn't have to work for the DOT. But being out there and actually working in North Haven today on Route 5, it's, we don't get a lot of the caveats as far as like the private contractors would have as far as, police and stuff like that. We're pretty much on our own.
You're on your own.
As far as the DOT, as far as maintainers and stuff like that. So, in the past, there's been a couple of bad things that has happened, and I guess it's on everybody's mind as far as people, driving and just kind of like paying attention as far as, texting and all the other types of things that kind of like go wrong. So this was the drawing that Sydney did, and I think there was like 6 other children there.
From throughout the state?
Throughout the state,
You were the
yeah.
only winner from Portland, is
For
that
Portland,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
So congratulations, number
Yeah.
one. And number
Yeah.
two, what an important message
Right,
for
right.
everybody.
So, one of the things I see in Portland is when you go down Bartlett Street, right there,
Yeah,
that stop sign, I don't know, maybe there might be a light some point in time,
yeah.
just a thought.
Suggestion?
It's just a suggestion, yeah, because they seem, you know, it's not really a 35-mile-an-hour road there, it's kind of like around 60, so.
You're right.
So anyway, you just want to, think about
We'll definitely
something like
think
that.
about
Yeah,
that.
think about it, yeah. All right.
Maybe you could pass the poster
Sure,
along so
yeah.
that we could see it, and
Yeah.
your prize
You wanna
as
see
well?
this right here?
Sure, okay, Dave, yeah, thank you.
Good job. Cool.
It's nice of you to take time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it.
Great job.
Thank you. We did replace many of the signs that are on Route 66. Many of them had begun to lose their reflexivity, the reflexibility.
It's easy for you to say.
Reflectivity? Reflectivity.
Whatever.
Yes, and they got bent, and some of them were hit, and so the DOT came out and they have replaced most of the signs along the strip from Route 17A out to Cobalt, at least, and they have more to do. And I really believe that makes an important difference, particularly for people that don't know the road. Near the ledges there, showing that the road is curving one way and then curving the other way, and that there's really a very small margin for any error. You have to really stay slowly and watch the road and not be texting, which we're also tempted to. That's a beautiful,
Yeah, it's nice,
yeah, signed by
they
the
asked me to
governor.
bring, actually, I just had it at the, I worked in New Haven, down Pomeroy, and engineer, the district engineer asked me, they're like a little short trip, so he asked me
Wonderful.
to bring it down.
Yeah.
So I had it down for a month, then.
Thank you, thank you.
Congratulations,
Yes.
Sydney. It's
Good
a,
job.
it's a very important message, and you should be very honored to receive this award. And you honor the town of Portland, too.
That's for sure.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
She received the award for the fire prevention, I think I mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She's
She
got a
got
knack
her-
for
she got her
communications.
ride from with the fire truck,
Ah.
that was one, right?
You're very good at posters and communication. That's very
Great job.
important. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Congratulations.
We hope you
Okay.
come again another night.
All right, thank
Bye,
you.
Sydney.
Thanks. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Public comment. No public comment tonight? Okay. Okay, the next item is an easement agreement between the town and Connecticut Natural Gas. And it is attached to your agenda. And what this is this building, as you know, has natural gas. And there is a building just to the north of this building on Waverly Avenue, which is number 13 Waverly Avenue. And that happens to be the Seventh-day Adventist-owned church. Right now, there's another church using the building. But they want to use natural gas for their utility, for the building. And in order to do it, they need to get the gas line from the library gas line. And Rick Kelsey, who couldn't be here tonight, and gave me some additional information in addition to the agreement, said that these easements are between the town and Connecticut Natural Gas, because they will need to cross 10 feet wide in width, and I believe about 20 feet linearly.
Lineal feet.
Straight. Lineal feet. To get to the property that needs to have the natural gas. So in order to do that, they cannot install that pipe unless the agreement is given to them by the Board of Selectmen. So I bring it to you for your consideration.
Susan, do you have a map of, showing kind of like where,
I do not have a
you know,
map.
just kind of showing where it would be cut across? Or
All I know is that it's from this property right
to there?
to there.
Or is it going across, where we have future possible expansion or driveway or anything like that? You know, any of that?
Not that I'm aware. I think it goes right from our pipe to their property, and then their pipe will service them. If you, when you go out, you'll see to the right there, Carl, sometimes you don't realize that those backyards from Waverly
Yeah.
back right up
You
to
butt 'em.
Freestone in some areas.
Are you recommending to adopt this?
Yes, I'm recommending.
So
that you
moved.
do. I'll second. I think that's yours.
Oh, okay.
Discussion?
I just read it for a second.
Sure.
On this, Susan?
Yes.
It says that to refer to, you know, the Schedule A for deeds and maps, and there's really nothing without the map. There's, I don't, can't see it on your Schedule A. I kind of would just like to see a map showing, you know, where.
Sure, you don't have to approve it tonight. We'll bring it back to you.
Isn't it holding up any?
It's, I don't believe that it would be a big map, certainly.
No,
we'll
no,
get
I
it
just
for
like,
you.
here's our property, this is what's gonna
Yeah,
cross
it's
it.
going right there,
So we're picking up right on our line, though?
yes.
And it's not, no driveways are there or anything else?
I'll get you the map. So do you want to withdraw your motion?
Sure.
Second, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem. We'll move on to number 8, resolution for the lease purchase agreement, which is for the capital lease. Let me read this to you now.
7:45, the board reminder will close in 15 minutes.
As you know, we have a lease purchase agreement that we will be issuing in order to do the many things that you approved in your budget, which is on your table here tonight, your budgets. It's a resolution to authorize a lease purchase agreement, and we worked on this agreement with our bond counsel. Resolved that the town of Portland finance the projects described in the capital improvement plan, which is in your envelopes on your table, included in the town's 2014-2015 budget using capital lease proceeds under a lease purchase agreement with a total principal amount not to exceed $1,379,500 and a term not to exceed 5 years, the lease purchase agreement. The lease purchase agreement will finance equipment and vehicles for grounds, fire, police, townwide, building maintenance, and highway project costs. And be it further resolved that the first selectwoman is authorized to determine the terms and conditions of and execute and deliver the lease purchase agreement and any related documents and contracts with contractors, vendors, and others on behalf of the town to complete the projects. So tonight, I ask for your passage of this resolution, and then we will have a town meeting, which I'm going to suggest that it be held on June 18th at 7 PM here in the library.
I move adoption of the resolution and waive the reading.
Seconded by Brian. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then I would request a motion that we send this resolution to a special town meeting dated June 18th, and that it be held at 7 o'clock in the evening here in the Mary Flood Room of the Portland Public Library. Is there
That's okay.
a motion to that effect for June 18
At 7 o'clock.
at 7 o'clock?
So moved.
Who made the motion? Ryan? Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now, in terms of the lease, we have our fire chief here tonight because we're gonna talk about a bid waiver for the fire truck. And to begin, I'm gonna read it, and then, Chief, if you could get up and answer any questions that we might have. I appreciate your coming. This is a request for a waiver of bid requirements for the replacement of the fire truck. Whereas the Portland Volunteer Fire Department is in need of a new rescue pumper fire truck. And whereas the Portland Fire Department has reviewed various types of fire trucks and designs, as Chief has told us, he and another member of the department have done a lot of research. And whereas the fire department has negotiated with Four Guys Stainless Steel Tank and Equipment Incorporated of 230 Industrial Park Road, Myersdale, Pennsylvania, 15552, a price of the fire truck not to exceed the amount approved in the capital improvement plan. Now therefore be it resolved that in the best interest of the town pursuant to section 1208 subsection 7 of the Portland Charter, the Board of Selectmen hereby waives the bidding requirements of section 1208 of the Portland Charter as it pertains to the replacement of the rescue pumper fire truck. And in addition, the Board of Selectmen authorizes the first selectwoman, Susan S. Bransfield, to act on behalf of the town of Portland to enter into any and all agreements associated with this project. So Chief, do you want to give a little background on
Yeah,
the truck?
Sure. If there's any, questions first that I can answer, I can give you an idea of what we started about a year and a half ago really quickly.
Sure.
We were looking to replace the 30, which will be 30 years old, engine one, which is out of Company One on Middlesex Avenue, and into something that is going to be better equipped and can provide more manpower safely to a scene quickly. It's got 2 seats. It was great 30 years ago, but you can't do much with two firefighters. As a matter of fact, you can't even technically fight a structure fire. You need 2 in, 2 out. So what we decided to do when it was time to replace that was I came up with an idea of trying to consolidate our efforts and putting an engine and a rescue together in one piece. It's something that new technology throughout the nation is starting to look at. So we began our search and we picked 4 vendors that were currently starting to build and we're currently building these type of pieces of apparatus. And based on our bid specs of what we were looking for to do here in Portland, we eliminated 2 pretty quickly. So we came down with 2 vendors and we began a year and a half process of developing engineering specs for the truck, which I played a big part in as well as the other committee members on what we were looking for, looking at the changes in the environment and the wear and tear on our apparatus, and looking at an all stainless truck versus the aluminum and some of the steel opportunities that are out there. So we received a very good bid. We started at about $540,000 about a year and a half ago, which we brought to the board. That number has come down considerably based on the work that we've been able to do with one specific vendor. We did change. Our ladder truck is a Pierce, and a lot of our equipment here is a Pierce, but they just couldn't really provide what we were looking for in the price range that we thought was acceptable for the taxpayers in town, and basically what we thought was provided by Four Guys. We're very happy with that selection. We're very happy with the price. It is an all stainless truck, so it should give us 30 years plus of longevity, and which most equipment that we have today does. And we're looking forward to move forward. We have some design work that needs to be done. for the cab, and that'll be done with the engineers and myself over the next 2 weeks. And once we are able to put a contract together, we'll move forward and hopefully have the truck delivered within 8 months. So we put a lot of time into it. Each bid spec is probably over 350 pages of individual nuts and bolts and axle weights and right down to it, so. That's basically in a nutshell. It'll phase out our heavy rescue over the years. Instead of replacing that rescue, which will probably be over a $700,000 price tag if we were to do that separately, that truck will eventually just leave the fleet. And this truck will be replacing 2 for 1. So I think it's an important thing to do. We need to reduce our rolling stock, but we need to be able to put more members on it to do the job. So technically, if we were to go to the bridge for a severe motor vehicle accident, we probably have to bring 3 pieces. We technically can do that accident as a whole with 1. And that's what we want to do. It's not safe to keep a number of apparatus on the road, so we want to try to respond with as little as we can and be able to do as much as possible when we get there. So that's why it's called a rescue pumper.
Who are the 2 finalists, Bob, and who did you eliminate and
It was
why?
Pierce, which is the manufacturer of our ladder truck that we did seven and a half years ago when we started this leasing program, which I think is one of the best options for any municipality that's trying to spread their costs out over time for the taxpayers. And Pierce they're a high-priced outfit. Their quality is exceptional, but many other vendors, including 4Guys, is just as good. So we were able to eliminate some of the costs. It's a first-time buy for Portland in this particular Spartan type of cab, so we've gotten some discounts through the truck. And 4Guys, as you can see, is named a stainless tank company because they originated by making milk trucks out of stainless years and years ago. So they've kept that. So they are state-of-the-art stainless manufacturers.
Who
So
did you
that's-
eliminate? Who were the 2?
In the very beginning,
Well, you said there were 4 and you eliminated 2.
there were. Marion was one of them. Pierce is gone now, and we were looking at Rosenbaum.
And why is it that you don't want to go to bid just because they've custom designed this for you?
Well, we've basically done that. So you're only gonna, we've done this with the ladder truck, and that's the problem with building a fire truck, Mark. You have to be so specific on your specifications on what you really want to provide for your town. And we're a little different here than cities, so we have to build a truck that's gonna be adaptable to our rural area. So some of those changes are not available by some other manufacturers. The rescue pumper combination is available by Pierce, but they put it on a chassis that's a very high-priced chassis. Their price came in at $548, and what they've done is they discounted that down by changing the cab, reducing the rescue body to a pumper, and kind of trying to enclose it and make it into the rescue truck that 4Guys has been building for years. So if we were to go to bid, I can't imagine that we wouldn't basically be in the same position. We did that with the ladder truck. We've kind of built it to the point where 2 vendors were able to bid against it.
And there would
And
be nobody else to bid on it except for Pierce. Who-
not with our specs
who
that we
you
were,
already know is more expensive.
especially with the stainless configuration. As a matter of fact, Pierce just sent me their last try this morning at 8 o'clock, which we were well beyond. And they did come down within $5,000, but it's not a stainless truck, and it's missing about 35 of the components that the 4Guys truck is. They did their best. They knew that coming in, but they wanted to give us a shot at it. They tried to the last minute, but unfortunately, I talked to the salesman tonight, and he completely understands the difference in what they're building now versus what 4Guys has provided for us that they have built in the past. We looked at least a dozen trucks. We looked at one in Ball Pond, which is in New Fairfield, I believe it is. And we went down and we spent about 5 hours looking at that generation truck, which is going to be almost exact, if not very similar to what we're going to build. And we were very pleased with the manufacturing and the engineering that was put into that truck, and as they were as well. So,
And what price are you at now?
$484. $484 was what we negotiated through. So the contract will be written as such, and I'll work with Tom to do that. We have to put some final touches on some configurations for the cab, but that doesn't affect the price. There's some contingencies in every bid spec we have for that, so we won't exceed the 484, and they're fully aware of that. And, you know, Pierce was trying to get to that number to try to stay our customer, but hopefully they will in the future. But this particular configuration, they just couldn't do for that price.
Carl?
To begin with, I want to applaud you and your members for, you know, doing such hard work and.
Thank you.
And putting,
Yeah.
putting
It's a lot
this
of
truck
time.
that, yeah, I'm sure it
Yeah.
is, you know. Whatever truck we do end up with, I'm sure that you did a lot of time and forethought into it, you guys. But on the no bid, I don't understand why we can't take all your specs that you guys work so hard on, take those specs, package it, and send it out to several other vendors, and see what happens.
You could, you could post it, you don't really
You know,
send it, you
or
can post it out.
whatever. Did you ever hear of a Ferrara?
Yeah,
East, you don't like them?
no,
Marlboro just bought 2 of them,
yeah,
and Salem bought one, and Hartford's using them all.
yeah.
And I don't understand why we can't take those specs and send them to them. They're down and out of Louisiana, where
You
obviously,
could, but they don't build a rescue pumper.
they said they have a custom, according to what I saw on the website.
You could, I mean, the best thing to do is to send the specs out and get
That's
your
what I'm saying,
answers
to
back,
take those
because,
specs
you know,
out.
we've kind of done that homework over the past year and a half, and that's how we've eliminated those who came to us and said, we can build you a rescue pumper. And that basically was the 4,
4 guys.
yeah, well, no, that was the 4 vendors that we
Oh, 4
first
vendors
started
they
off.
started with, yeah.
And when we started looking at stainless construction, that's where 4 guys kind of came to the top. Pierce as well came to the top just because of their quality and our experience here in Portland, especially my experience over 30 years, even from the town that I originally came from as a kid, ran Pierce's. So we tried to do our best to do that, but that wasn't feasibly responsible enough to put forward to the taxpayers.
It's not like there's not been diligence in looking at
No, but they did.
the
what-
options,
what-
but when you go out for the lease, they will say, did you follow your adopted
Yeah.
purchasing guidelines to the T? And because it isn't, that's why you have to
Right,
pass this
right.
resolution.
We did that with the ladder truck, we've done that.
What I'm saying though is now that you have all the specs done, did all your homework, everything's pretty much done except like you said, a couple
It is.
minor,
Yeah.
you know,
Specs
things.
for 1 truck.
Yeah, imagine.
Not sure how Tom's gonna send that out.
But to put it out to bid, I mean, it's a lot of money. I don't see why we would have to close off to this one company right now. And it's not you or the fire department or anything. I like to see bids. I don't wanna do waivers anymore. I think, especially on large capital items such as this,
One thing that will
try
happen.
to send it
though-
out to get what you want and need,
Right.
but look.
So you'll have a 30-day bid return on that, and then we're gonna have to go through and compare all the specs line by line to make sure that they agree with each other and
Okay.
eliminate from that. So we'll probably have a good time frame to do that.
Yep.
And then you're looking at price increases by the end of July, which probably won't be that large. I don't know what those will be. We're trying to sign something in July to avoid that, but that really doesn't matter if someone that was to come in under. So we'll have to spend, we'll need that time too, which will push the delivery of the truck out past your, I think talking to Tom, there's a restriction on your capital lease program. On the
And I'm
delivery of
satisfied
capital
with the
items.
process that we've gone through, and I'm prepared to endorse this resolution.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So from I know this is a custom truck, but from a practical standpoint, don't you kind of know what people would come in with? I have to imagine that.
I've been doing
the
this for a
price
long
of
time.
these, well, that.
Yeah.
And I would have to imagine that the price of similar trucks is public all across the country, right? So you know what you're gonna
It
get
is.
anyway.
There's a lot of
so-
cookie cutter trucks out there
Yeah.
that are basic priced. You can even look at a generic price online and then you build onto that.
Right.
And there's a lot of chassis, Carl mentions Ferrara
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and, they're just different. We've looked at
There
a
are all
lot.
kinds of motors, go
All kinds of
Detroit,
motors,
Cummings.
yeah.
Right,
Jeep.
but I mean, you probably know, so Farrar, for instance, that
Yeah.
if it were similar, which doesn't sound like it is, but I don't know.
Well,
what
it's
you
just a
want,
company.
But if you could probably look at something comparable and see what they just sold it for, right, somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, here's, and I may be wrong here, but I think East Hampton just went through the same process with an engine, and then they went out to bid and spent, I think, over $60,000 more after the fact because of the cost. But I think that was a one-time, availability of a truck, so, and they ended up picking up another one for a good deal. But it's a difficult, I'm in the engineering field all day long, and I buy and sell steel and make stuff, and I know that prices are changing every day. When we started this back a year and a half ago, we were measuring prices as we moved along, and every time we got a new bid spec, they were changing.
But you've come to us a couple times with this discussion.
Yeah, you funded the pre-trip for us to go out and do these engineering changes, no matter what truck we decided on. That little bit of money's in capital for us to do that, for me to go and actually sit with the engineers and look at the prints versus trying to do it back and forth through the mail.
I'm just saying, this isn't the first time that we heard about it.
No, it's worked out well. We did it with the ladder. We had the same discussions with the ladder truck, and, we kind of wrote a spec on what we wanted built for Portland.
And you're
Something
below
that
the
was-
budgeted amount, correct?
Yeah, I think.
That's what Tom told me before the meeting tonight.
We're right, yeah, we're right. We won't exceed it anyways, but our 484 is the number.
Thank you. Yes, Mark, yes.
Chief, I'm convinced that you have done your due diligence and you've represented the town. I think Carl is too. I think we all are. The concern that I share Carl's concern candidly, and I'm prepared to move the question to support the acquisition because I am convinced you did it. But this board has made a practice of waiving bid requirements for capital items. It is bad business. It is in contradiction to the intention of the town charter. And I think as a board, we have to make a statement that says we're gonna stop this. We have to go with the intention that is written in the charter that the voters in town adopted. Having said that, I agree with Carl that you have put in countless hours. I believe you've done your due diligence. I think you've represented the town well, and I move adoption of the resolution with the caveat that you know going forward that this may not happen again.
Well, the bid,
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brian. Discussion. Go ahead.
either way, we'll work to the end if we go out to bid. I think the recommendation was by Tom also, based on all the material that he saw that we were doing and our elimination process on that. Listen, I've been lucky enough to work very close with Tom, and he's tough, and I like that.
I don't want to hold
So-
up the acquisition of the truck. I
Right.
don't want to hold up our bid process our loan process for the other capital items.
That's the only caveat that I think that I don't,
Well, it's
I'm
not the
sure.
only, I mean, there are a lot of considerations here, so that's why I made the motion. I think, we need it. I think you've shown great foresight in preparing for the future. I'm all for it. Just, the message has got to be there that we can't continue to waive the bid process going forward.
Yeah, and if this is an instance where you want to make that change, that's perfectly up to you, and I
No,
will
I think
move-
you've done the job.
I'll move
I
forward
just-
either way, it's fine with me.
I will
It's
say
gonna take a
that I
little more
remember,
time.
I haven't been on the board that long, but I do remember, a bid coming before and us saying, never again, this is the last time.
Right.
I do understand the circumstances, I'm in favor of it as well, but I'm also, like you said, in favor of, good practice and not,
And I
making
need,
a
I need,
practice of
I need
this.
to also remind the board that I think what you're really talking about is you need to look at the purchasing regulations again. And while they're set one way, when we purchase certain kinds of things, depending on how you want to purchase them, if you want to, as Chief pointed out earlier, there is other methods for doing the bidding, yes. You could have come up with only the specs and not
Mhm.
gone out and looked at the material, and then really carefully analyze things. We also have to understand that we are limited. in terms of the fact that it's a volunteer department. So the time invested to look at the truck and look at the options, I think was very important to do. And there was extra time spent on that. So I don't want people to think that there wasn't a lot of looking at what's out there and what good
Nobody
value
No one
suggested
said
is.
that.
Susan.
Well, I'm just repeating it, and
Yeah.
I felt it was important to repeat that. So, thank you for letting me.
Let
You're welcome.
well, let me reiterate also that I think Chief Jay and his men have done a great job, and like Mark said, kudos to Mark on his speech too, because it's true, you guys we're not talking about that. We're not
Oh,
talking
no.
about the truck.
Completely
We're talking
understood.
about the business purchase, of putting out a bid, large capital items, and I'd like to see them come in, with bids, not just to put it out in a waiver. Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense to me.
Although, I generally agree with everyone, although I think if you're buying a specialty piece of equipment, there's always gonna be certain exceptions, and you may actually be doing the taxpayers a favor by doing it this way, because you're getting exactly what you want, and he is going through the process of comparing, competing, going down that road, so you end up going through the bidding process, and you end up with something you don't even want.
Well, on the specs that you go to bid, you're there, you should tell them you want this and this and this and this and this and this, what's the price? You know, and we're not talking about, we're talking about big companies, large companies, and companies that, like I said, I just did it real quick, and I talked to a couple firemen in different departments, and they said that the reason they went to this is that, like this company, which I have no idea, but they said that it was considerably cheaper, and they gave them what they want. They'll fly they would like our guys to go down, to Louisiana, see their plant, just like, you did with the 4 guys, the whole thing, and go that way. Now, there's other companies also.
You
I
like
mean,
crawfish?
Haven't been there yet.
Jambalaya, yeah.
Wisconsin cheese, that was
Yeah.
the ladder truck.
So,
Haven't been to
Food's better.
Poor guys.
I just don't wanna see, I don't like the waiver on the bid.
Well, I
on
want
large
the
capital.
board, and I will put it on in the July agenda. I want you to look at these regulations, because we really haven't analyzed them in a while, and I think it merits looking at them again.
Well, I don't think we should remove this from.
No, I'm not suggesting that, but I'm suggesting that they be revisited, because there's actually some things in there that say you don't have to go to bid on these kinds of things, even though we do. There's other matters that you can do RFQs. I mean, there's something that's gonna come up with the brownfields, for example. We have consulting engineers that have helped us with our brownfields. And Tom and our attorney is saying, once you go out and use the state grant, you may, if you go out again for RFQs, you may choose a different person. If you choose that you want to keep the certain engineer that you're using because they're a professional, and the regulations, it says professionals don't require bidding, should you still have a motion that says you waive that, even though the regulations say that professionals aren't required? So those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about, not buying chairs or not buying tables and things. Kathy, did you want to say
No,
something?
did that motion get seconded?
No, it got seconded, yes, but we haven't voted on it. So I'm gonna make a note that we at least look at them again to see if there's some additions that you wanna make or some changes that you wanna make on the rules themselves. Because these waivers are going to come again and again and again based on the rules as they're established. And maybe on other occasions, they should not, or they should, depending on what it says in those regulations. So, are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
1 opposition. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Good luck on the truck, Eddie.
Thank you, we'll keep
Thank
you
you.
posted as we
Okay.
move forward.
Thanks for your
Thank
hard
you
work.
For your time
Thanks.
and help.
Appreciate it. It's been fun. I'm sure if I'll do this with you next time, so.
Wanna do it again now? Go for some crawfish about now, you guys should about that.
Fred asked me, and I did email the selectman, he has asked that we have possible topics for policy discussion. So Fred, think I just brought one up.
Yes, I made a little note that there's one at least, something to do with waiver policy, so there's one. Yeah, as I recall, and one night I think I did bring up the fact that I would like to take a look at some of the ways we do business, and the board indicated I thought that there at least was some interest, so that was the reason for suggesting we put it on the agenda, looking basically for a little more efficiency, if possible, in the way we deliver services, and also to see if we can save a little money, which is always a good thing. So anyway, I did put down several, and as I indicated, I think, or Susan indicated when she sent the email out, you might have some other thoughts. And then if some of these are gonna stick, and there is interest, then perhaps we could start to put our teeth into a few of them. If you want, I'll mention some of the things that, and we'll be out by 9, don't worry.
The first one has something to do with trees.
Trees.
One topic, I was trying to think, and I do read quite a bit, and because of my business, kind of follow what's happening. And I noticed that transfer station. I look at our transfer station, I say, okay, it's a piece of property, it's basically industrial, actually suited for industrial use, I don't know what the zoning is. It's got some reasonable acreage there. Then I thought of my own experience where there are in a couple of things. One, there's a private vendor where I have some property in Rhode Island who takes care of the landfill. And also I see that there was a recycler up in the Southington area who approached the town to see if the town was interested in having him take over the recycling facility, and pointing out that it does two things. It would generate, and this is according to him now, but it would generate some income for the town, and it would free up those workers to work on other areas that we seem to hear periodically we need more help in, such as highway, et cetera. So I said, yeah, well, that's a thought. You know, there's something that might be worth considering if the board agreed. So it was industrial use, looking at a vendor to take it over. All these, this of course would be a long process, so something like this wouldn't happen overnight. We talked about solar one time, having around the school. Some towns are using solar on some of their town property to generate electricity and sell it. That's another possibility for that spot. So those were a couple. Industrial use, as I mentioned. at the
Towns are
beginning.
selling the power that is developed
Yeah.
from, really?
Yeah. When you think about it, particularly if you know, the numbers work and you have the space, you know, it's a good spot. We were gonna do that here in town, or that was a proposal, as I recall, at Gildersleeve, was it?
Valley
It
View.
was,
Yeah, okay, yeah. So that was one. But generally, the topic of economic development, generally, I think I'd like to see us work along with the other boards and commissions that have jurisdiction to see if we can come up with some thoughts and some direction and some ideas that might be of help. I did meet with someone just recently and talking about sewers. And there was the discussion, again, is about a different type of a sewer. I'm familiar with it, again, because of property in Rhode Island where you have grinder pumps, and there's one source, and you use the pump, and then you pump out to the sewer. And what you get away from is you get away from having to put in a large sewer pump, which is very expensive, and most towns, unless they have to, would like to avoid them. And that's one of the reasons that drives the cost up so much is the pumping alone, plus, of course, the construction. This is a small pipe, and the pumps works, whether it's a commercial application or residential application, pumps out, you join it into the sewer at some point, and that's basically how it works. And the advantage of it is your cost. It's a lot less expensive. You're cutting your cost down dramatically. And there's been discussion about, and there are different feelings on extending sewer out along 66, and the question, which is a very good one, is it worth it? Can you make it work? But this, at least when you look at this, you're looking at a much smaller figure. You're not looking at the gigantic dollars that you would be looking at with a conventional or traditional sewer installation. And then, what else do we have? I also have some interest, as we all do, with the water system and trying to, I know we have a subcommittee working on that. But I was thinking of incentives, and those of you who know me now know that I'm always thinking. But I'm saying, okay, we have some incentives, but we really do need to get more people on our water line. And maybe that there might be some incentives similar to some of the things we do for large water users where they get a break at the beginning. Just trying to come up with different ideas that can generate some interest in business development. The grants, Susan and Tom and Rick are all involved and do a great job with the local, with the state grants, and we have a lot of progress with that. The federal grants, I think I sent something around on that. Federal grants, I know, are different, a little different. They require a lot more in the way of oversight. There's, we have a very small bench in terms of being able to deliver the kind of time that would be required for some of the grants, federal grants. However, on the other hand, there is substantial money, as I pointed out, I don't know if all of you saw that email, but the title of it was a little misleading. It had to do with minimum wage, but it was one of the blogs and talked about Putnam, and it talked about the fact that working with the two, both Senator Blumenthal and Representative Courtney, they generated somewhere in excess of $13 million to upgrade their water lines and their both repair and put in existing lines. And that's miles of lines. So the reason I bring it up, as I say, right now I know that we don't have the capability, we can't require the folks that we have to do much more in the way of grants than they're doing. But is there is there something else we can be doing so that might be something we could look at? That's why I bring it up. That's enough from Fred. Why don't shut up? Anybody else?
Well, thanks for thinking about all this. Really, I do applaud you, Fred. These are all ventures that are worthwhile our consideration, but I have to be perfectly frank and tell you that I don't feel capable to adequately investigate any of those areas.
Mm-hmm.
My knowledge base just isn't sufficient to make a decision on any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe other people do.
I think I've been saying the same thing, particularly as it relates to water. I know we have this committee and everything else, and I honestly think that you need to actually sit down, spend a lot of time on this, and I think you need a consultant, and I think you need to put some money aside.
I agree.
And you need to go down that road, because I don't think anyone is really equipped to do that without the help of experts.
Well, that's where I was going, Brian, too.
Yeah.
I think that Fred's points are all legitimate points and all worthy of exploration. But I think we need professional guidance. And I know that Carl and I have difference of opinions on the water. And I'd like somebody to, I agree, somebody to take a look, but you know what, we didn't budget for that. It's not in our budget.
Well, the conundrum there is, who's gonna pay for it? Is it gonna be town, or is it gonna be the water budget that already is in a deficit?
No, I think it's
So that's
I think it's a town
important to
matter.
know.
And I think the town needs to hire, and maybe there is a specialist, a consultant that could deal with more than just one of these issues and help us and guide us, but again, we haven't allocated the money for that.
The
And
oth-
we
the
haven't
oth-
even started the new fiscal year yet.
And I think it begs the point, of the question, that you're already involved in many other projects. And I can tell you that this brownfields, for example, that's gonna take up a fairly good amount of time. Staff's time as well as your time. And the water and sewer division situation should and will take up a lot of your time. In terms of grants, when you get them, you do spend a lot of time with them. The state grants are easier to manage. The streetscape money, that was federal money, and that was almost $1 million for that project. The money that we got for High Street water main was federal money funneled through the state. And that was also a very challenging project. We were able to get it completed and done, but in terms of accessing these funds and in terms of managing the funds, we've done it and we can do it. But I need to know, and I think this is part of this discussion, what your priorities are. Because we've already established many things that we are doing. And in terms of economic development, every time you bring in a new development, of course, we have to make sure that all of the inspections are done properly and that all of the plans are looked at carefully and that they're managed appropriately. And you had planning and zoning here the other night telling us that their plan of conservation and development is something that they want to analyze as far as what's been done over the last 10 years and what you want to incorporate for the next 10 years, which I would say could be some of these things that Fred is pointing out. If you have an interest in something different to be done with the land associated with the transfer station, that should go in your plan. And how that's managed and what resources are then allocated becomes part of your annual plan in terms of your budgeting as well as allocation of staff. And we've already, of course, established what we're gonna do for the next year in terms of our budget and in terms of many of the projects that we're working on. So while I agree these are important avenues to consider, it's also a part of how are you gonna plan these things and how are you gonna allocate your staff and your resources. I will, as a sidebar, point out, I was on the Board of Selectmen, I'm not sure anyone else, maybe, I don't know if you were, Mark. No, I don't think you were. The Board of Selectmen had a vendor that was going to take over the transfer station.
That was what, Susan, sorry?
The transfer station.
Okay.
That was before me.
And there was a contract that was promulgated, and it turned out that the successful bidder, if you will, was someone that had been involved in some situations that really the town did not want to get involved with. I remember voting no for the contract, and then doing some further research, and as it turned out, that particular contractor was not someone that the town was going to get involved with because they got involved with the law in another state in a contrary way. So what happened was the selectmen at the time had to recant, and they had to withdraw their motion and their resolution.
What did they do?
I'm sorry?
What did they do?
I'd have to look back in the annals, but there was.
Couldn't have been that juicy then.
It was on a business.
You know, that
But
probably had to
anyway.
do with, I'm sorry, go ahead, Susan.
But in terms of allocation of the staff, you know.
It's a lot of time and effort.
Took the words right out of my mouth. But it's not that you can't, I'm not saying you can't do, yes, you can do it. But I need to know how the staff is going to be managing these projects. And I can go over with you the projects that we're working on, and that's what we tried to do tonight. I mean, there was one, the fire truck purchase was a big project. It's something that has spent a lot of time by the financial staff as well as the
Well, perhaps we should spend some time talking about these things and sort of prioritizing.
But that is, and I guess it kind of goes back to what we talked about last time and a few meetings ago. Technically, if you do the plan of conservation and development correctly, these are the kinds of things, Fred, that are talked about and determined that, yes, this is something we want to do.
It's a good point.
Yes, we do want to change how we manage waste in our town. And we're going to really analyze that and get it done over the next several years. We're going to take a look at our water system, which is already in the plan of conservation and development. But again, it's a matter of allocating the staff and finding the money and getting it done. I vote that we really tackle the water and sewer, and we've got to do that. And it can't be done tonight, obviously, but it is something that we've talked about this all the time.
It's only 8:30 leave time.
And the other thing that you've endeavored is the recreational park on Route 17. And Ryan and Brian are coming to a meeting next week with me to talk about how you're going to finance that project. How you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and when you do that, that means something else is not going to get done in terms of priorities. So recreation.
You only have 80 hours in a week?
The Board of Selectmen are doing a lot of good things. And I think sometimes I need to remind you all the things that you are doing and that your staff are doing. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, I'm going to write up all the projects that you have endorsed and you're very, very well accomplishing. And then look at the plan of conservation and development as it exists now and see if there is something. There may be something in there, Fred, that talks about the transfer station and the handling of recycling
Yeah,
and waste.
there are a lot of, it's more of a blueprint, actually, of what you want to do. And my point of bringing these things up is that philosophically, some of them, no one has the time to, at this point, to jump into all of these. But some of them, I think, are less intrusive than others, and some of them are very low, and can be even some low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And something like the plan of conservation development, if we go back and look, we'll find that we haven't been doing as a town, all of the things that are in there. And that's a function of time and a function of personality, et cetera. So if we don't, in other words, something like the recycling, I would differ, it could come up as a topic if you had a scope and you had 100 people that said, yeah, we should do something, or 100 people said keep it in. And maybe the feeling should be it should stay exactly as it is. But just from a discussion viewpoint, either people would say, yeah, that's a decent idea to look at. I don't see that particular item necessarily as a big consumer of time. I see it as seeing if there are any vendors out there, talking to some folks to see if they're interested, who's interested, if anybody's doing it. The point being, if in fact it works and you can make money or you can use it, there should be, it should be talked about. If we put it off till the plan of conservation and development is finished, we're looking at not talking about that particular item for several years. And I know that there was some problems, and I think that the trash holders were before the players as far as the people were coming in looking at taking over, because they wanted the landfill. They wanted to use the landfill. But today it's the recyclers. It's a different mix of people. So I'm not personally afraid of talking to those kinds of people about whether or not they're interested. Maybe there's a lot of other reasons why it shouldn't happen. But to me, as I'm looking at it right now, I don't see that one item as, in terms of philosophy, not execution. I'm not saying we're saying, okay, well, next month something's going to happen. I'm saying you look at it and discuss it and see if it has merit. And, you know, either folks feel it does or it doesn't, so that's why that one I brought. And things like the water sewer, yeah, that does take, that takes some expertise. But again, I think that as far as, you know, as far as myself, I like to see what options are out there, like I mentioned with the alternative septic and sewer system. That's an alternative. I haven't heard that come up in discussion.
We did adopt, what's the name of the type of sewer option? Is it, I think it is the grinder pumps. We did do an adoption of a policy that we are allowed to put those in.
It's
In
on
fact, on
Grandview
Airline
Road.
Avenue, remember, we were
Grandview.
saying we were being, I think it was Airline Avenue.
Maybe it was
Yeah.
Nothing's happened. Nothing's happened.
You can fund, the groundwork is there, and it's a matter of funding it. Yes, you can do that, and finding customers that want it. And we did have a few customers there that were interested, and then as the economy changed, they weren't. So.
Is that for the, forgive me, I don't know anything about this either.
Yeah.
But, because the effluent gets ground up, it flows easier, therefore you don't need as big a pump, is that?
Right, it's.
I know I'm making it very simplistic, but I'm trying to understand.
It's, yeah, in other words, it's a site specific. You own a property, a small commercial or a residential. You have your pump, a grinder pump generally, and then that, the fluent's, you know, crunched up and out into the regular system.
Oh, so it's not part of the sewer system, it would be with each property owner?
Right.
I see.
And then
It has to get into the system.
Yeah.
You use them usually, Mark, on, because we use them all the time in real estate, is, if your sewer system is at a lower grade than the pipe,
Yeah.
that outfall. You know,
Yeah.
just remember, it all goes downhill. So if you're below the downhill,
I know what you're talking about.
you gotta go above that, you know, the gravity line, you know, and then it will flow. And that's what they use the pressurized systems for. Same thing like on a boat with a macerator, you know, crush it, grind it all up.
We have a pail on
But what I do want to do, Fred, as we continue this, is to put together the projects that you are working on now, so that you do know and are reminded some of the things that are finished and some things that we still need to finish.
But they are good ideas.
And
to-
we
things
need to
look
be
at,
able
yeah.
to then fit them in and work on them.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait until a plan of conservation and development is done. However, I also know that whenever you change use of town land, you have to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission to get either their endorsement or their non-endorsement. And then as you know, if they don't endorse, then it comes here and you can override them. So there is a synergy and among, particularly for the use of town land. One thing that's come across your emails that I've sent you is the cell tower. And there will be a meeting, I don't have a date yet from the company, but they will come and do a presentation on that topic. Just while we're talking about the use of land, you don't have a say in that because it's in private land, it's not on town land. And the siting council does have the jurisdiction over that, but that's one area that I know is gonna be coming to you soon too. Other,
Thank you.
topics for the discussion? Mark, did you have any? Kathy?
No.
Brian?
Well, I think this might even be on the agenda in the future, but the ball fields, in particular Bransfield Park, I think is something
That's a good point.
Yes.
Did you guys get packets like I got yet in your boxes?
Yes.
You did? Okay, just wanna make sure everybody got that reading.
They're in the boxes.
Cool.
I got them at the May 29th meeting.
Oh, good.
They were
All right.
the boxes. Anything else, Brian?
I don't think so. I'd like to refresh my memory how this works, just briefly. This plan of conservation and development, how does that start? Who's responsible for the input? It's really all planning and zoning for the most part. Is it sort of their vision of things for the help? How does that,
There's a visioning process
Yeah.
typically, and typically when we.
from the planning and zoning department?
When we did it last time, they
Right.
hired planimetrics.
Right.
And Glenn Chalder was the consultant that worked with them. And you may have gone to some of the visioning workshops that they held, 2 or 3 of them, I believe they had. And they opened it up, people had matters that they wanted to bring up. Some of them were members of boards and commissions, some of them are people that aren't on boards and commissions. And then they had another session where they had all the prouds, all the things they love about their town, and the sorries, all things that they want to change about the town. And then he took that information, digested it, and then brought it to the next session, where people then ranked them, so they had an idea as to what it was they wanted to see happen. And then the next step would be taking a look at various boards and commissions and the things that they're working on and things that they want to do. The lead agent, the lead agency would be planning and zoning, but it's an incorporation of all the other departments as well as everybody in the town. Have you read the plan
But
of
who
conservation?
who decide? I mean, I have to believe that
Have you
there's.
read it?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
you're
so you
yeah.
know there's a lot of different
Sure.
chapters and they're ordained from the past as to how there'll be economic development, and then there's one on utilities, and then there'd be one on other topics. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission reviews it, and then they pass it on to you, and then you look at it, and you may have a public hearing on it, and then you vote on it, and then it goes back to them if there's any suggested changes, as I'm recalling, and then it has to go to the Office of Policy and Management. And it has to be at least looked at once during the 10 years, and then adopted. And you have to have that in order to get like steep grants and other types of grants, because if you don't have a reviewed plan of conservation and development, then you're not eligible to get grants, because they want to be sure that you've done the things that Fred's pointing out and that other folks have talked about.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad. Can I add a couple more things?
Actually.
Some towns do it on a yearly basis, where they look at these things on a yearly basis and determine what they've done and where they're going. So they never really go through 1 year of review, but they go through an ongoing review. And they may have a separate plan commission, and then they have a zoning commission. So the plan commission spends their meetings going over that and looking at what's been accomplished in water, in sewer, in economic development, in the zoning area. And then they would give guidance as to what hasn't been done, what needs to be done. I know, I talked to someone in Old Saybrook, and that's the way they do the plan of conservation. That answered your question.
It does.
Right.
There probably should be some discussion amongst us in terms of funding, how much we're gonna be willing to fund that. The price tags run anywhere from $70,000 or $80,000 down. That's the top. Some towns do it, combination 20 down in the 20-25 range. But it's usually a substantial allocation.
Don't know. Yeah. Ryan, anything on that?
Yeah, actually, nothing to add at this time. I thought, appreciate the ideas. I think that for me, water is.
Yeah, me too.
A big issue, and I agree with Brian's point. I hate to admit, but I'm no expert in water, and we definitely, I feel that we could use some assistance in making the best decision for the town, because water means business, and we need the business, and if we can fix this water problem, we can bring it, we can attract, if we can extend the pipeline on 66, there's a lot of different options and a lot of different benefits that I feel to evaluating this, so the sooner we get it done, the better off the town will be.
And everybody said that, so to me, I think there needs to be some sort of analysis, which I think would be a relatively easy analysis in terms of the cost benefit, in terms of what the cost is gonna be to put all that work together on that highway, compared to what you're gonna get out of taxes and whoever comes in there. I cannot imagine in a million years it's gonna ever pay off. But I have to believe somebody can assess the value, what's gonna go there, what kind of taxes you're gonna generate out of there possibly, that would possibly pay for all of this. I just can't imagine that the numbers are even gonna come close.
The town can't pick up that kind of capital cost.
Well, the other
Just
thing you
can't.
have to look at, Brian, is even before you get to that, as I said, the visioning statement or the visioning.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so we're gonna.
What do people want that live in Portland? Do they want untoward development, or do they want a very controlled development? And I know there's a lot of schools of thought on that, because people talk to me. And there's concern about overdoing. And I don't think that you are. I think that people are relatively pleased with the level of development and the infill that's been occurring, as opposed to new land being developed. We have needs in the water system as it exists, and the 100-year-old pipes need to be replaced. And along the way where the water system is already in existence, needs attention. And as Fred pointed out, there are areas where there are customers that could come right onto the system, and it goes right by their street,
But
and
what
we haven't
benefits?
extended it.
You know what, if you have well water, what's the benefit of having town water, I guess? and
Wells
that's
cost
something-
money. Wells cost money,
Wells,
just
but, yeah, but
And they're
so
very,
is-
the waters can be very problematic.
True,
depends,
true.
right, Mark?
Yeah.
Depends. Some it's beautiful and wonderful, and.
So if there's public interest, then I absolutely agree. The more people we can get on that, the better.
I just think you need to look at the numbers, because I think when anybody looks at the numbers, they're gonna say, why the hell do I wanna spend all this money, millions and millions and millions of dollars, to benefit, I used to use Walmart, but whoever it is, you're gonna put Walmart out on 66, they're gonna get some, I mean, what are you gonna get out of it?
Do they need water?
I don't know. But I don't know who you're attracting. It
I
seems to be the
understand what you're
talk
saying.
is
Well,
we're
apparently not
trying
the
to.
new club law firm.
Sounds like, well, that's who you would attract as opposed to industry. I mean, or people that have to deal with the traffic on the bridge. I mean, there's not a lot of companies. I mean, that's.
The bridge is a hindrance,
Sure,
yeah.
so, it just seems, I don't know, everybody talks about that, but it just doesn't make sense.
That's in the plan too.
I appreciate
Brian.
your input.
That's in the plan. As a matter of fact, I think there's a 40,000 square foot, so I don't, limit in terms of the size of the building. It's in a conservation and development plan. So they couldn't build a Walmart. They could, I suppose, a
The
mini.
building mini ones,
a
mini me.
But Walmart isn't gonna happen.
No. Well, whatever it is, so
Whatever,
even
yeah.
if you're talking about that size, then I don't know what you're getting. I
It
mean,
would
you're-
also
that's-
put us in
that's-
close proximity to East Hampton, and for a potential,
And how's-
down the
and
road,
how's that
that
gonna
could
be-
benefit us as well. I mean,
Only
there's
if you're
just, these
keeping
are
the
all
water.
different things that we should be looking at, potentially. We gotta keep our options open. It's keep everything on the table right now until we evaluate the numbers. You're right. I don't know the numbers, I don't know if they make sense, but until we know them, we shouldn't, close any doors.
I understand, but it just seems like there could be a fairly quick preliminary analysis, and you're gonna find out that it's costing.
It's gonna be an interesting
I
few
told you
meetings.
so.
That's great.
That's good. This is good discussion. Carl?
He
All
wants
set for
LDC.
tonight? We'll
You're
put it
doing
on
well.
again. How about, do you want it on the
Okay.
next meeting?
Which,
I think the topic that you just,
oh, sure.
thank you. Anything else on this end? All set? Laura, we're ready to move on? Appointments to boards and commissions. I do not have anything tonight.
Carl, do you? No.
Okay, thank you. We do have a refund. Mark?
Move that Robert T. Barron Jr. or Angela Stella Barron be refunded $155.46.
Second.
Seconded by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Status and committee reports. I do not have anything to report tonight. Does anyone else? Public comment? Yes. Mr. Norm Ward. How are you, Norm? Do you want to come up to the mic so that you can be mic'd? Thank you.
Open mic.
I'm glad to stop by.
Good to see you.
I'm extremely happy to hear about the discussion of the plan of conservation and development. The one we have in place now is our first one in 30 years in the town of Portland. It's supposed to be done every 10 years, and I was part of working on the one that's in place presently. If I can just make a comment, I think it's
Absolutely.
very important. It is the plan of development Bible, planning and zoning. The other commissions was involved in the beginning, but we, in my viewpoint, the consultant we had in, she did not want to involve the other commissioners from other town committees. She sat here, told us we weren't part of planning and zoning, and she didn't want to entertain us. And that changed real fast. So we have to be careful on who we get as a consultant. That's all I'm bringing up.
I agree.
Because if we don't involve everyone, you lose a lot of interest, you lose a lot of support. And we've really worked very hard the last 10 years or better to keep everyone involved, keep everyone notified, and it really has worked out well in all our commissions. Speaking from conservation, I'm the chairperson the last couple of years. Like tonight, we met, and we had an applicant come in and review their plans with us. And that never, ever happened before. But it's because we're all working together, and people respect our comments. And it's really benefited the town, I think. So our plan of conservation and development is a big, big asset to us. And it does tell us where we want to go and be in 10 years. It's not easy, because we're all come from different points of view. Fred brought up our recycling center. Over the years, I think we've done fantastic with our recycling center compared to what we had before and where we came. It wasn't an easy road, but working together, we got there. It was nice to hear, now it's time to move on. Maybe there is a better venue out there to help us. It's a lot better than what we had before. And that was a town effort, and I think we did extremely well at the recycling center. And the other thing that was brought up tonight is natural gas. And there was a big discussion in my neighborhood up on Penfield about where is natural gas located in town. There's a lot of interest of people that want to use natural gas. So it'd be nice if we could have a map of where it's
Yep.
located
I'll add that to the list.
and where it might be. Our discussion was, do we think we'll see it in our lifetime? Or we always say out on Penfield, not in our lifetime. We're just too far out, but we don't know. So it's nice to hear it being discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Thanks for your comments. Now we'll move on to number 15, Board of Selectmen General Informal Discussion.
I just had a question.
Sure, Mark.
Tonight was supposed to be a financial meeting, but we don't have any finances.
Well, we
Is it because
did,
it's too early in the month?
well, we did have some financial matters.
Oh, yeah, but we don't have a report.
And Tom is not here. He's on leave for a week.
Oh.
I thought it was the second meeting
No,
of the
it's
month.
the first.
It's always the first?
Yes.
My mistake. Yeah. Can we have it at our next meeting then instead? Can Tom make it with financial reports?
I will let you know.
Okay.
Because we will have some matters. I'm just not sure if it will be that one or maybe later one.
Mhm.
Yes, I will let you know. Follow-up items? I don't have anything on that. And I don't really have anything new for executive session, so I don't think that we will
Move
have that
adjourned.
tonight. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
By Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And yeah, I was gonna say, forget the calzone, I can pick up a beer tonight.